G'day everyone, welcome to New Tech. My name's Miles and it's wonderful to have you here. In today's video, we're going to be checking out FluidNC, and especially if you're looking to upgrade or use FluidNC for the very first time, I'm going to go through a whole lot of different options available for you. Now, I've also got a whole lot of different timestamps here, so if you want to speed through to a specific part of today's video, feel free to jump on there and skip ahead to where you need to go. So let's get started. FluidNC is an advanced CNC firmware and it's for use with the ESP32. So the ESP32 is a 32-bit processor microcontroller. Now that has integrated in within it a Wi-Fi, a Bluetooth, and also a USB serial connection as well. So there's lots of different things that we're able to get out of this one chip. Now the best part about it is if you use it over Wi-Fi, you'll be able to use it on multiple different devices. It doesn't really matter what type of device that you use, you're able to connect to it because it uses its own web page that's stored on the ESP32 that you'll access via Wi-Fi. Now, some really great things about it is that there are regular updates and new features being released all the time, so it's something that's evolving and you can add on different features as they release different things. It can support up to 6 different axes, so those machines that might use like a rotary axis as well as the XYZ axis, you can have a dedicated axis for those different things. You can also do, if you've got 2 y-axes and you want them to be homed separately, you can also set that up as well. Now it can also be loaded onto various or existing CNC control boards, but they have to have the ESP32 chip on board. So just check what you've got and check what hardware's compatible with via the wiki for FluidNC. You can also ask for any support using the Discord server. So there's a really great community on the Discord that you can ask questions to and they can provide answers, things like that. And the best part about it is it's incredibly affordable. It's a very cheap processor to buy, the ESP32, and it also costs absolutely nothing for FluidNC. So I'm incredibly thankful for especially Bart, who created the FluidNC out of his own time and collaboration with lots of other people to come up with this free software that you can install yourself at home. Now let's go quickly. I'm going to jump over to the FluidNC website and just show you a little bit about how to find FluidNC and where to kind of start with FluidNC. So I'm going to start by just typing in FluidNC into Google, and you'll see here that it comes up with a GitHub. Now GitHub is like a website that has been created so people can upload code and they can collaborate on code with other people and share their projects. Now it can be very overwhelming if you've never been to GitHub before, so don't worry too much about what you see on the screen. So on the left hand side you can see these are all the files that are used to collaborate with to create FluidNC. Now there's one file in here that we will be accessing through this tutorial. So while I'm here, I'll just go up to code and I'm just going to download it as a zip, so that happens in the background while I'm talking. On the right hand side you can also see that we have the releases. So if you're watching this maybe in 6 months time, you'll find that there's been different releases. So go check out the releases and see what different features or bug fixes have been updated since. And even if you have FluidNC already, I always suggest go about once a month and go and check out any releases so you can update your FluidNC firmware. Now to update FluidNC firmware, it's so easy. Just upload one file to the ESP32 and then it updates, and you don't have to change any files or settings or anything like that. It just updates and gives you new features straight away, which is great. Now down the bottom here it has a little bit of information about FluidNC itself, but the one thing that I want to go to mainly is the check out the wiki. If I go and click on the wiki, this is a really fantastic resource to look through, and I suggest if you're looking to get FluidNC and you haven't seen this yet, go through and have a look at this information and read through it, because it will certainly help with putting things together for especially your YAML folder, and I'll talk about that in a second. On the left hand side here you can see that there's a whole lot of topics you can look at, like setting up your axes, set up your homing and limit switches, your SD card, putting a probe together, different spindles that you can use on it, different kinematics, and a lot of information, really helpful stuff. Now there's One thing that I suggest you going to, so you can see, especially if you want to find a board or hardware that's compatible with FluidNC. I'll just jump down to the existing hardware here, and you can see that there is a whole lot of different boards that are already available for use with FluidNC. You can see a whole lot of these boards have something very much in common, and that is this ESP32 chip. Now, they all use the same chip, and they're just different variations because they're just using the pins in different ways. Some of them have the ESP32 board just plugged into a breakout board, and some of them also have the ESP32 chip installed directly on the board. And all they're doing is using these little pins here to output to different areas of the board so you can use them. You might already have some of these already set up. You might already have the MKS DLC32 on your CNC and you want to update it to ESP32. So that is possible. Now, one thing that I want to get, and I've just ordered this one, this is the Tiny B. I really like the look of this one. The main reason is because it's a small board, has lots of different outputs, so it has 5 different axes that you can attach. I'm going to be using these as external control drivers, so just use these pin outs and 2 external drivers and kind of not use these onboard small drivers that you can clip in. I'll go through more in detail on how to upload it, but essentially uploading it is the same for each one of these boards. And I'm going to show you quickly kind of the life cycle of putting these together. So there's plenty of boards that are compatible with, and there's a couple down here that aren't compatible. Let's have a quick look at the kind of the life cycle of FluidNC on how to get it onto your computer. So you start by downloading the FluidNC. So I'll do that in a second and show you how to do it. So we have the FluidNC software, we install it straight on the ESP32, and that only takes about a minute or so. So it's like a generic firmware that's on the ESP. It doesn't know any information about where to send data, for example, your steps or your motor drivers or probes. It doesn't know any of that information yet, because what you need to do is you need to put this YAML file onto it. Now, YAML file is just like a text file that just has the sequence of, oh, here's my x-axis, and I want the x-axis to use this pin as my stepping pin, this pin as my direction pin, and it gives it kind of like the rules or instructions on how you want your machine set up. So it's incredibly easy on how to put this together. So what I'm going to do for starters is go back here, and we're going to start installing it onto my ESP32. This is the chip that I'm going to be using today. Now, there's a whole lot of different variations, obviously, of type of chips, and you could see that these were just plugged into some of the breakout boards. Now, on the MPCNC that I built probably about 8 months ago, I used just this chip alone, and then used the pins to output to my stepper motors and probe and things like that. It is very possible just to use this one. You don't need to go out and buy like a specialized board for it. So for example, this one here is one that I bought from AliExpress. Now this one here has a lot more outputs, has 6 different axes, whereas something like this can only handle 3 different axes. And the main reason is the difference between this, they have the same chips on them, they have exactly the same pin outputs, but what happens with this board and what you'll find with the larger boards is they have these shift registers. Now I suggest going on to Google or YouTube and having a look at what are shift registers if you don't know what they are. And essentially what they are is they kind of just extend your pins a lot further and having more outputs. So, but unfortunately only uses the shift registers for outputs only. You can't use like an input for shift registers, so you're kind of limited in how you can use shift registers. But I'm not going to go into too much detail about that today, because that's something that I'm sure if you want to go down that path, you'll do some research. So I'm basing today's video mainly about using this ESP32. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you on how to upload FluidNC to this board here and how to get it set up so you can use it straight away. But before I do that, I want to quickly talk to you about how I would go about using this board, because if you've ever used Arduinos before, you can see that these pins here, you can get these special type of wires that kind of have these little pin headers, and you can put them over the top and then you can connect that to where it needs to go. Now, I don't like using those pin header wires because of 2 things. First thing is that they're incredibly unreliable, and the second thing is that they can fall off really easily and cause a lot of issues for you down the track. So I suggest if you want to use one of these, to go ahead and buy something like this. Now this is called a terminal adapter, so it uses these screw terminals down the side to extend your pins. So all you would have to do is just figure out which way it goes on, which is this way, and you'd go on and clip it in. Now, the issue is here, and I'm going to show you the issue because I bought a couple of these going, great, these look fantastic online. Now I went through and tried to install it on there, and you can see here that the pins don't actually align with the pin headers. Like there's just like one pin over too much. And even if I put it onto the other little pin headers, the same thing happens. So it goes in between them, which is really quite frustrating. So there's two ways I can go about this. Is I've got another one here. The reason why I didn't use this one is because some guy, when they did the soldering at the factory in China, they put this side on well, but you can see this side, where's the holes to put the screw terminals in, they're actually being installed on the wrong side. So I'm going to have to go through later and desolder that and switch them over. So I've got this other board here which has the correct terminal outputs, and what I've done with this is that I've just got these pin headers and I've just gently pushed them down just using these clippers. So it uses this header and this header here, and went through and pushed those down as well. And you can see here, if I look underneath, you can see all the traces on the PCB on where they kind of connect to. So it's a really simple board. There's nothing incredibly complex with it. So I'll go ahead and mount that on. So I just need to figure out the right way. That's the clock. There we go. So you can see now that even though I've slightly pushed these pin headers out, if I go and install it, even though I might flare my pins out slightly on my ESP32, it actually does align pretty well and slide in. So this works fine as well. Alternatively, you can do what I once did and go through and create your own breakout board just using like this prototype board, and I've just connected the screw terminals across to these pin headers. I also put in 12 volt to 5 volt regulator here, so I can use a 12 volt power supply with the ESP32. Now this is a bit of a quick and dirty way on how to do it, and I'll provide a link down the bottom on an image on how you can achieve this. But I've used it quite a lot and it works often. Now, the other thing that I'd suggest you doing before you start thinking about wiring is install one of these for your limit switches. Now, what this is this is an optocoupler, so using optical switches that allows you to separate the voltage. The reason is that limit switches go from pretty much your microcontroller and just go one cable all the way out to the machine. And that can cause a lot of issues, especially if you're using like high powered spindles and stuff. They can create electromagnetic fields, and then if that ever gets close enough to your limit switch, it can actually go and fry something like this, because it can create enough voltage that will go through and could destroy your microcontroller. So I like using these little optocoupler connections. So you just put from here to here, you put your XYZ limit switch pins. There's also a fourth one that I use for the probe, so I'll put them there, and then I attach another power source here, and then that goes out to the pins, and this just keeps them completely separated, that they never have that voltage that might come and destroy this pin. So that's something else to consider as well. Okay, so I'm going to go through now and upload FluidNC to this ESP32. Now, what you'll need to check when you're uploading it is that you get a USB cable that has the correct data pins in it. Some of these USB cables don't have data pin, they're only just used for power, so just charging devices. So if it doesn't connect to your computer for some reason, go through and change the cable. That's the first thing to try out if it doesn't connect to it. So I'm going to go through and just go ahead and plug it in. You'll see that a little red light flicks to say, yep, you're now connected and I've got power. Okay, one thing about installing this that I found is that I can't use my Windows 11 PC. It's not compatible. For some reason, it doesn't upload it using the FluidNC software. What you'll need to use is a Windows 10 PC to do it. So I'm going to jump back over to my desktop here. Now I'm going to show you on how to download this. I'm going to go back to the GitHub. And you can see up here where I said before that there are the releases. So this is release 3.6.5. I'm going to go ahead and click on this release. You can see here that there's a whole lot of features that have been added or bugs that have been fixed up on this one. And I'm going to be using this Win64 version here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click it, and it should download it pretty quickly. Okay, now that's come down as a zip file. What you'll need to do is unzip this file here. So this FluidNC main, this is the one one that I downloaded at the beginning of the video that has, if I just show you what's in there, I really just wanted it for this file only, the example config. So this is something that I'm going to reference a little bit later. But I'll be using this FluidNC 3.6.5 version. So if you right click on this and then go to extract all, and you'll find that we can extract it all and it will be just a folder. So you'll have like two different versions. One will have a zip file and one will have a folder. So let's go into the folder one instead. Okay, now the best part about using FluidNC is that you don't need any special like Arduino program or anything to upload it. So what you'll need is just this program alone, and inside here you can see that there's three different versions. There's a Bluetooth version, an FS version, I think that's just like a normal USB version, I can't remember, but we also have this Wi-Fi version as well. So to install it, all you have to do is double click on the Wi-Fi version. It will come up with this message, just go to more info and go run anyway. And we'll go through and find the attached or connected ESP32, and we'll go ahead and we'll just start updating it straight away for you. You don't have to click anything else. And that's what I really love and about the simplicity of what they're doing with FluidNC and how easy this is to create. You don't need to go through all these different loopholes to get it done. So within that time, now it's finished. It's uploaded FluidNC and it's ready to go. So what I need to do first of all is just restart this, the FluidNC. I can do that by just removing the cable and then reinstalling the cable back in. I'm going to get rid of that window for the moment because I'm going to be using this fluid term file that they have in here. So what I have to do, one of the first things that I need to do, I need to go to more info and run anyway for this fluid term. I'm using number one, which is the COM3. Now, what I need to do is I need to do a couple of things, and the issue is the computer that I'm currently using doesn't have Wi-Fi, it just has Ethernet input, so I can't actually show you what the ESP looks like at the moment. So I'm going to show you using my phone. So what you'll see at the moment when I go to Wi-Fi is that I'll have this under my network. You should have a blank FluidNC. When I click on it, it asks for a password. So that's quite simple. You just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then go join. Okay, once you join, you'll see the first thing that pops up is that it should go directly to the FluidNC page. That means that it is connected and it is working. Now, one thing that I have already done is I've already uploaded one of the files that I need for it. So I'm just going to go very quickly and show you on how to upload this file here. So if I go under Wi-Fi, I'm just going to get rid of that terminal. If I go under Wi-Fi for the moment, it will have a file called index.html.gz. Now, to run FluidNC with the normal controls, that's something that you'd see very much like Fluidware, and I'll show what that looks like. That's this interface here. To have this available, that's what this index.html.gz file allows you to see, or it uploads it. So you have this web page control. So what you need to do is get that index.html.gz available. You can do that by just going into your FluidNC and then clicking on the open, and you can see there in the middle there I've got index.html.gz file. Now, if you don't want to do it via Wi-Fi, if you can't connect to Wi-Fi yet because you haven't attached it to your Wi-Fi, you can do it via this terminal. So I'll go back and I'll show you what that means. So under fluid term, I'll go to 1. Now I can actually upload the file directly from this terminal. So I want to show you both ways. So I could do it via Wi-Fi if I've connected to it, or via terminal. So here it says to upload, I have to just click Control U. So I'll go ahead, click Control U, and it opens up a upload file. So what I want to do is go into that Wi-Fi folder and I find the index.html.gz file and I go open. Now all I have to do once that's opened it, I just have to click enter, and that will go ahead and upload that. You can see I think it goes up to 126 or something like that is the upload number, and it happens pretty quickly. So once that's gone up, there it is, it's now installed, and you can see it's received. And the other thing that you'll need to do is upload a YAML folder now, or a YAML file. Now the YAML file I spoke to you about before is kind of like your instructions on how your machine is set up. So the ESP32 understands on how that's set up. So if I go back over here and I go to downloads, I've got this FluidNC.main. This is the first file that I downloaded. If I right click, I'm just going to extract, actually if I just double click on it, I'm just going to copy this file out here, which is the example config file. I'm just going to put it in downloads. So I have the example config file here. So this example config file, now with my machine, I've actually got it set up just using the basic ESP32, and I'm just using simple pins. So this is the YAML file. If I open it up, I've just pretty much used just the very first file here, which is a 3-axis version 4. So if I double click on this, you can see here that it has everything set up already in here. Now from this one here, you can see here there's a couple of things that you can see straight up. So you've got X, which is X motor, and you can see that this uses a specific pin for the limit. So the limit pin is pin 17, and that's at a low. You can also see that the direction pin is GPIO 14 and the step pin is GPIO 12. Now I'm going to show you very quickly here that I've mapped this out already on my FluidNC ESP32 for you, so you can see where these actually join in. So if I go back and have a look at this one here, I can see that the direction pin is 14 and the step pin is 12 for my x-axis. So if I go down here, there it is, 14 and 12. Now that's really simple. All I have to do is go from this wire, my direction and step pins, straight into my motor driver. And my motor drivers already have those pins in it. You can see here that these DM55 556 drivers already have those pins already placed in here. So all I have to do is go ahead and put the pull, which is my pulse, or my step goes into there, and my direction goes into the plus, and then I can connect all my ground straight back to the ESP board. So it's really simple on how to set that up with external drivers. Now you can also see here that if I go back to this YAML file, we have the Y axis that's already set up and the Z axis, and we also have the SPI pins as well. We have the SD card is already set up as well, so I just used an external, like an Arduino SD card module that I connected to it, just using the CSP GPIO on 5. So if I go back here, so we have the MOSI, which is G23 and G19 and G18. So that's what I've set up for my SD card, and I've altered this slightly for my version. My version also includes laser output as well. Also, I'm not sure if this has a probe in it, this one. I've also, this does have the probe included on it as well on 32. So hopefully this has kind of given you a really clear idea on how the basics set up. Now, if you're using something that has your shift registers, you can actually go through and just have a look on how they've set theirs up. So this 6-pack 2131 is using shift registers, and you can see here that it uses this engine I2S stream. So you can see here when it uses the pins for these, it uses I2SO pins. Now this refers to the shift register pins. You can see that we still have our GPIO pins, but it also uses these other pins, and these refer to the shift register pin outputs as well. It kind of gives you a good idea on how this can run on any type of board, or how to put it together for yourself. So what I need to do before I jump in and upload my YAML folder, I need to set up my FluidNC for my local network. Now, setting up the Wi-Fi is really simple. So once you have the ESP set up, you can then go ahead and connect it to your Wi-Fi or your router that you want to connect to. So once you've opened it up in the dashboard, you go up to the lines up in the top right hand corner, go through to setup, and then you go start setup, go continue. Now underneath there it says what access point ESP need to be connected to. So I'll go search and choose your Wi-Fi network, and then go ahead and type in the password, and then what is the ESP access point SSID, which is FluidNC, which is fine, and the password for the access point, just leave that as it is, and then go ahead and go continue, and then setup is finishing. So once you finish that, you should be able to disconnect from the ESP, and then on the desktop now. I can connect to it. Should be on the network. Should be FluidNC.local. Then go ahead and connect to it. Now that it's actually available on my whole network, that I can have multiple devices be able to connect to, but only at one time. So here you can see that everything's set up. So once you've finished your YAML file, you can obviously use a lot of the files that are up there as your templates to go through and edit the ones that you want to use and make them yours. You can go ahead and just upload them. So under FluidNC there, we can see that there's an upload or a manage local files button. We click on that and then click on upload files. And that's where you can upload the files that you need, or the YAML file that you want to gain access to control your system. So the one that I've already uploaded is the 3axis _ v4, and I'm just going to go close. Okay, now down underneath here, you need to make sure that you name the config file name as the 3axis, the one that we just saw, _v4.yaml, and that will make sure that it will use that file that's sitting in the file directory, this one here, to control the machine or to set up the machine for what we need to. So it's got a big green tick, and I can just go ahead and restart FluidNC. So I hope that this has been enough information for you to get started, and I suggest happy reading. It is a fantastic platform, and I think that the guys who have put it together have just been amazing, and I want to thank them very much for putting together FluidNC, because this has come to us for free, and there's such great support, and there's constant attention to updating and putting this together. So if you ever get a chance to say thank you to them, go ahead and do that. But thank you very much, guys, for watching. If you want to find any of the components that I used or any of the YAML files that I also used as well, find them in the description below. But besides that, if you've liked this video, please make sure that you do like it, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.